Hi guys, this is Vishal here from PrepCode. So in this video we will understand how to make an API call to create some record and then process the response. So let's say there are scenarios where let's say you are creating a task in Asana, and in response you want to capture the task ID back in the collection. So we have a collection where we are pushing some data to Asana to Slack. Whatever the response Asana or Slack is returning, we want to save that response back into the same collection. Let's try an example. I have a collection called project. So let's say I want to implement a flow. When someone creates a project, I want to push this data to Zeno, and whatever response Zeno is returning, I want to store it back in my collection. So let's see how that can be done here in PrepCode. Okay. So we already have a Zeno account, and we already have a collection called project, and it has a couple of fields: name, description, status. And this is the REST API where if we create a new project record in Zeno, it takes name, description, status, and in response it returns ID created at name, description, status, right? So let's say we are creating a project in PrepCode, store the data, push the data to Zeno, and in response whatever fields are coming, so these two extra fields are coming, we want to store it back in PrepCode database or PrepCode collection. So let's see how that can be done. So I'll go to my project. Okay, so let's first build a external API. Okay, so I'll go to my external API and then I'll just create one external API. I'll say create project on Zeno. It's a post call, so let's go and see the API documentation. It's a post call and expecting 3 parameters: name, description, status. Okay. So as of now, I have kept the API open, but if your API is closed, you can pass the access token also. So this is the API post call. So I'll just copy the endpoint. I paste the endpoint here. Now we want to send dynamic data, which data of a project collection, right? So I'll mark its project. So all these we have covered in previous video, that how to send dynamic data to an external API. Okay, so I'll send default JSON. So its name will come from the collection field name. Then description will come from the collection field description, and status. Okay, status will come from the status field. Okay, so as of now I'm just creating an API and pushing the data, and then once that runs successfully, we will come back and see how we process the response. So this is the part which we are covering, process response. Okay, so I've created an API. Let's quickly go and create an event. Go to my event. Let's say id event, create project on Zeno. Okay, so very simple event where I'll say first save the data in the PrepCode collection, which is project. Okay, saved data error. Once the data is saved, make an external API call and send the data to Zeno. So this is the one which we just created, API to Zeno, and that's all. So now let's go to a form and just bind this particular event, right? So we already have a form. Let's just delete it. Let's drop a new form. So I'll drop a 2-column layout, and then I'll just drop a collection form. Okay, it's project, and the event is create project on Zeno. That's all. Right, so it has already created these fields. So let's preview it. So once I submit this form, it will create a new project in PrepCode and then push the same data to Zeno. So a new project gets created in Zeno. So let's see what all data is there in PrepCode as of now. So I'll go to collection. So as of now, there are no data. Okay, I'll go to Zeno and check. Here there are 2 records. Okay, so now let's create a new one. So I'll just submit this project 3. Some description, some status. It's completed. Okay, that's all. Now I'll say submit. So it has saved the data to Zeno. Okay, so now let's go and see whether the data got created in Trapcode. So I'll go to my collection and the project 3 got created, which we just created. Now let's go to Zeno. So the data got created. Now in response, Zeno is returning these two things, ID or and date. Okay, now let's say I want to store the response back, right? So how do I do it? So to store these two things, we need to create two fields, right? So I'll go to my configuration and then let's say create a field, a text field, let's say Zeno ID, or maybe a number field. Okay, and save it. And maybe another text field or number field, or maybe date field for the date. But date, I don't know whether it's coming in string format or date. So just to be on safer side, I'll just say a text field, Zeno created date. Okay, so this could be Asana ID. In case of when you are pushing a task to Asana, you are pushing creating some record in Zendesk, Freshdesk, so it can be those ID, could be Salesforce ID, could be any other data which is coming as part of response. Okay, so now I have just created two fields, Zeno ID and Zeno created it. Now let's say I want to capture this data. So whenever the response comes, I want to capture this in my same record. So here if I go to collection, so let's say these are the three fields which I am pushing to Zeno. In response, I want these two fields to be coming from Zeno, Zeno ID and Zeno created it. Okay, so let's see how that can be done. So I'll go back to my external API and just edit it. So now to process the response, I'll say process response. This is first thing. Save response data, definitely I want to save. I'll say update item with response. I am saying whatever data I am pushing, whatever that record is, update the same record. So there are multiple options. Either you can update the same record or you can store the data in some new collection or some new record, right? But here I just want to update two fields of the same record. So we are using this option, update item with response. Okay, so now it is saying whatever the response is coming, is it coming in some internal JSON path? Okay, so as of now, the data of Zeno response is coming at the root. You see, it is coming at the root. If it is coming in internal JSON path, like in case of Airtable, I'll just show you an example. The response comes inside records, and then some array and the response, right? So here you will have to put records, something like this. Okay, but here in case of Zeno, it is coming at root, so I'll just leave it blank. So I'll go back. So the ID is coming in the field ID. So here you can see it is showing me that, okay, in ID, what data you want to store. I'll say just whatever is coming in ID, just store it in ID, and it created at, store this created at. Okay, so these fields we don't have to store because we are already pushing the data. So there is no point of rewriting it back from Zeno. But let's say if there is some changes happening at Zeno and you want to even bring those changes, then you can map these fields also. Okay, so I just map the two fields which I want to store as part of response, and I'll just say save settings. Okay, I'll say save settings. Now this was our old record. Now let's create one more record. Now in the new record, these two fields should also come. Okay, so let's say completed some date. Okay, now let me push the data to Zeno. Submit. Same thing, it will push the data, but now it will process the response as well. Now let's go and check the response. So let's first go and check in Zeno. So let me reload. So the data got created and 8 and some date, project 4 test completed. Okay, now let's go to Trapcode. There should be one more record now. Okay, so the record is here, which is project 4 completed medium this. Now the Zeno ID is here, and this is the date which is Zeno is returning, right? So we are basically storing the response of the API in the same record or same collection in Trapcode, right? So this is much useful when you are hitting some external API and you want to store the response back in the same object. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you again in the next video. Bye bye.